Um, well, we'll start. I think, yeah. Good afternoon. After it was afternoon. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the last class of the week, which is always our 6th day of practice, and it's always we always do a workshop. And I always, when I thought about doing these 6-day intensive weeks or these things where you just sign up, I always wanted to have these little moments where we can come together and we can share and we can listen and we can hear from nurturing points of view. And so I did the first couple, and then I realized that I've got really amazing friends and colleagues who have got such rich voices that I'd love you to hear from them too. So last week we had Greg, but I'd already organized Zephyr, and Zephyr and I have been we've known each other since probably only about six months, something like that. But she's definitely someone who I can ring up and we just have just straight away just have deep, amazing conversations about yoga philosophy, psychology, what it likes to be parents, how crap life can be sometimes. One of those people who I can just really straight away be myself and be comfortable with. And I really pleased that she could come along and share. She's just for me, a really amazing voice in the yoga community, with the way she's able to articulate yoga philosophy and teachings and yoga and make it relevant to life. And so we discussed about what to talk about, and she has this really beautiful lecture she's about to present. And I'll just say something else also. One of the next, probably not next one, but the next podcast after next on the Stillpoint podcast is one that I've already recorded with Zephyr. And so you've got, if you're like really into what happens today, then you've got that to look forward to as well. So I will just hand you straight over to Zephyr. There you go. Enjoy. Thank you, lovey.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Thanks, you guys, for showing up Saturday mid-morning. I really do appreciate your attention and your curiosity. And yeah, being open and willing to be guided by another yoga teacher. And thank you very much, Scott, for asking me and that really lovely introduction. I'm very blushing and quite chuffed to be here. So thank you. My name's Zephyr Wildmon. I am a yoga teacher in London, but I am stuck in Morocco right now. My family and I came out here. They were coming for a long weekend before I was about to teach my yoga retreat, and they closed the borders and I had to cancel my retreat and had to process the past month of being stuck in Morocco. I'm in a beautiful place where I host my retreats, but it has been a huge adjustment to digesting and kind of understanding our options and our lack of options. So I myself, this is a workshop on anxiety, and I'm not going to say that I'm qualified in any way, because I myself am very human and I experience anxiety often. And thank God I have my yoga practice. I also am a member of a 12-step fellowship program called Al-Anon, who are friends and families of alcoholics and addicts. And I've been a member of both yoga and the 12-step fellowship for about 21 years now. So thank God I have those two platforms to kind of anchor me when all of a sudden my life feels very uncertain and spinning out. So I want to thank you so very much for, this is a very poignant conversation. It's a very topical one that I hope to pass on some tools and some stuff that will really help you learn more about yourself and to actually take care of yourself during this time. So I wanted to just start by just allowing us all to be on the same page. So if I can have us, and I know someone's having a walk, so you're just going to do a walking meditation, but it's more about just coming together, closing the eyes. I'd like us to just rest either one hand to your chest, one hand to your tummy, or both hands onto your chest, whatever intuitively feels more aligned for you. And just closing the eyes and slightly bowing your head and gazing into your own heart. And allowing yourself to just settle into the room and have a tender, sweet smile upon your lips. And notice how that smile starts to shape the tongue, widen the space between the ears. That we all of a sudden become aware of all sounds, the environment we're in, and becoming more sensitive as awareness descends into the body and sensing the body breathing. And hear these words, this prayer, as if they are your own words. I bravely face every moment, honoring myself, seeking joy, contentment, connection, and love to ultimately celebrate a faith-filled, fearless, awakened life. That I go into every experience, fearlessly connecting to my unique power and experience wisdom, with quiet confidence, self-belief, and the courage to intimately share the beauty of myself. That every day I honor the shadow side, the virtuous side of myself. That I become open and willing to be guided by these teachings and use this practice to open myself up to unlimited possibilities of healing, growth, and to thrive. Connecting to this light within you. Smile, gazing down into your own heart and quietly saying to yourself, with great respect and love, I honor my heart, my inner teacher. And bowing our heads and honoring all the teachers that come before us, whatever form they may take. And sensing the mind quieter, the heart open, and the body strong and vital. Slowly opening the eyes and lowering your hands. And just softly gazing. I draw a sacred circle around all of us during this time. And my talk that lovely Scott wanted me to talk about is anxiety. And I think we all at the moment are experiencing this natural response to anxiety is this sense of, our bodies, our energy body, our mind, everything's just all of a sudden kind of kicking in to kind of try to create self-preservation, to feel safe, to feel like we belong because we're all of a sudden pulled into isolation, and ultimately that, we matter to someone and someone else matters to us. So I wanted to offer you not just kind of my perspective and opinion, I wanted to offer you more about what the traditions of yoga says, and then I can kind of put it into context with my own experience. So I've created a little slideshow for you guys because I have a tendency to talk a lot and I get really excited and I go on massive tangents. So my slideshow is mainly for me to kind of anchor me, but it also will give you a visual to be able to kind of go, oh, that fits like this to me. And do know that these are many different maps that explain a territory. They don't come from the same source, the same century, the same, school of thought. They're a little bit of, I have taken what I liked and leave the rest. So it comes from, the Vedic system to pre-classical yoga to Tantra to Kashmir Shaivism, from the Yoga Sutras, from the Upanishads, and I kind of have weaved together my own understanding that creates a blueprint so I can actually feel more safe in the way in which I construct my life on top of that blueprint. So it's just kind of creating a foundation, but do know that these maps do not fit like puzzle pieces. They overlay and create a kind of depth of experience. And there's no right way. And what we were saying right before Scott and I came on is that yoga is an incomplete system. And the more that we kind of accept that, we start to reach for other things. And it's great that you have a community that not only are providing you to have the experience of physical practice and meditation and pranayama and chanting, but also a place where you can have this, you know, being inspired by some rando yoga teacher, and then possibly having questions, doing some critical thinking. Does that work for me? And then afterwards, a community in which you share your lives, you share your experiences. So I think the kind of combination, just like what I'm going to show you, it creates a whole experience for you to be able to understand the territory of what it's like of being a spiritual being in a human experience, but having a human experience being a spiritual being. So I find yoga is not about this transcendence and bypassing this human experience. It's like, only if I just kick it to 6 series and I can get through all the series, then I'll arrive to this enlightenment retirement, and I'll never be affected by the mundane human experiences of this human meat tube. Unfortunately, I know people who are able to do 6 series, and they're still nutty and crazy and affected by life. But what it provides you is that every day we get an opportunity to practice. So I thank you so very much for opening this up. And I think this lecture is mainly for me to kind of regurgitate my process. Like I said, you know, I've experienced a lot of anxiety right now, and I've put into practice these principles in all of my affairs, not just as a teacher, but as a, you know, as a mother and as a wife, and as getting used to my community who are all Berber and Muslim, and Ramadan's coming up, and you know, it's a different culture, and it's a different religion, and it's a different practice, and it's a different way genders work together, and it's quite unsettling. So everything becomes a teacher, and hence why I said let's bow to all teachers, because whatever is between you and feeling free right now, what is between you and feeling safe right now, what is between you and being in love right now, what is between you and feeling mentally well right now, whatever is between you becomes the teacher. And this is the idea of, you know, us being the yogi. So I'm going to start my little slideshow just so you guys have a visual, because I'm sure you don't need to look at my face. It's better to look at my slides. So let me just get those up for you. So are we able to share my screen? Give me 1 second, share screen. And I'm gonna go here, and I'm gonna go share. Okay, now I'm gonna go here. Sorry, I have to talk to myself. My family make fun of me all the time. All right. Can people see my little screen with the Z? Yes? No? If you do a different view, maybe you need to be in the grid mode, and then you can see it, okay? If you have anything, like any questions, please type. Scott is by the little computer, and he's typing away, and I will put the chat screen at the bottom so I can see you guys. And then I can actually see if I need to stop and explain something. So if you are not getting something, or if you have questions, type it and I'll address it. So, all right. So we as the yogis are the adhikaras. This is coming from the Yoga Sutras, a term from the Yoga Sutras. And this meaning is that we are the seekers that journey through the physical, the energetic, the mental, and the kind of cosmic realms, and being able to kind of digest and understand these practices on a deeper level, that we practice these principles of yoga in all of our affairs, that we are competent enough to be able to receive these teachings and actually not just have this kind of amazing yoga body, but be congruent with our energy, our emotions, our mental, and the higher experience. Yes, I can offer you guys these slides, and I'll put them as a PDF, and I'll send them to Scott, and you can have these as reference, because this isn't mine. This is I've just taken it from other places. So I'm just regurgitating it. So happy to share it with you guys. So we as the yogis, we are dealing with being embodied and very human. So we're going to have certain human defects of character as well as human virtues. So that sense that accepting that you're going to react to life. But the idea of the yogi is that pratipaksha bhavana is that you acknowledge the shadow side, you acknowledge the stinking thinking, you acknowledge this very difficult, unpleasant emotions and feelings. There's a certain amount of respect for them. But every time that there's like a negative thought or perspective or seeing it, that you catch yourself and it becomes a teacher, and you start to look at how to kind of repackage it in a way in which you can learn from it. It's like, how can this serve my awakening? Instead of kind of, there's this attitude of like people's reaction towards life's change or illness or disease or death, all the kind of reasons why we suffer by the Buddhist perspective, is that we can either say F you or thank you. And so us yogis as the adhikaras are saying thank you. I welcome this practice. I welcome these teachings. Okay, how can I actually see this from a different perspective? How can I turn this into finding the courage to face my fears and my reactions and find the sense of gratitude, falling back into this sense of falling back in love, contentment, and also forgiving practices for me being very human. So to start off with kind of, we're all on the same journey. We are very human, but we are spirited human beings. And so there's a sense that our spirit wants to inspire our soul to evolve and learn what it needs to learn in this lifetime. So according to Georg Forstein, in the Yoga Sutras, chapter 227, he explains the 7 stages of yoga. This is different from the 8-limbed path. This is the 7 stages of yoga. So this is a really good foundation, like a blueprint, in which we can kind of go, okay, 1 stage, 2 stage, what stage am I on? And for us Westerners, this really makes sense because we like order, we like things, especially us yogis, because we're a little bit of control freaks. At least I am. So it's like, oh, I feel safe. I feel contained by this practice. So these are the 7 stages of yoga. We need to cultivate self-awareness. The first stage is to wake up. Right now, right now, right now. How are you feeling physically, energetically? Do you feel like you want to jump out of your skin and run away? Or do you feel like you want to go back to bed? Or, how much sleep did you get? Or, what did you eat? How did it affect you? The sense of like, what is going on in my mind? The sense of starting to wake up any given moment and practice. The sense of as we wake up, we start to then go into the second fold of the stage, which is self-understanding. This idea of svadhyaya in the kind of Kriya Yoga, in that niyamas, is that svadhyaya is self-study. It's to understand yourself, to gain more self-knowledge of kind of going, that food always makes me react like this. This practice, when I'm really agitated, this practice really winds me up. Or this meditation is really needed right now because I can sense that I need to be nurtured in this way. So this understanding of like how to bespoke your practices, how much sleep you need, what kind of foods you need today. So it's kind of drawing on the sister science of Ayurveda, of really understanding yourself, and then also understanding yourself in relationship, understanding the world around you, and how you are completely powerless over everything. You are powerless over people, places, and things, powerless over your politics, powerless over how the government's dealing with this, powerless over whether you get the disease or not, powerless over, everything. But what you are powerful over as the adhikara is how you choose to respond or react. Your choice in understanding how life affects you and go, wow, that rubs me up. the wrong way quite strongly. Wow, that's a really strong reaction. Why is that? What is this? And as you investigate a lot deeper into it, it unfolds eventually through practice to self-acceptance. That's the third stage. This accepting, surrendering, this letting go is all about our yogic experience. It's not about self-improvement. It's like, if I can just get that bind, if I can just master headstand, if I can just do this and be perfect, then I'll be okay. Yoga is not about perfectionism in that way. It is a very aesthetically pleasing asana practice, but ultimately, yoga is about self-acceptance. And when we experience, and acceptance cannot be willed, you have to be open and willing to receive whatever is present, the obstacle that you're facing, and then that then unfolds. And it unfolds into the next stage, which is self-discipline, which refers to practice. And the idea is that this is at the heart of the method of yoga, is abhyasa, focused, diligent practice, vairagya, of letting go of sensory observation. So pretty much we're going to be in the first four stages, like the cha-cha-cha, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, for the majority of our life, as we're going to go from practice to waking up again, self-awareness, self-understanding, self-acceptance, and oh, we got to practice some more. And that's a really kind of naive perspective, is once we get to this level, then we will arrive. Once I have, third series under my belt, or once I, get the wife and kids, or once I get this financially secure, or once I get that, then I'll arrive. And unfortunately, we all know that that just isn't realistic, because we're human, and we're always going to be working on it. And this is the joy of being the yogi, of the seeker, as we're constantly seeking to know ourselves. And that will unfold into the next stage, which is self-actualization, self-realization. Who are you when you're not trying to be somebody? Who are you? And maybe I should refine that, is what are you? Drop the labels as Zephyr, the yoga teacher, wife, mother, friend, sister. Who am I when I'm trying not to be somebody? And so what our practice is spending more and more time and deeper levels of consciousness, becoming more attuned to taste. What is that pure conscious awareness that is effortlessly perceiving through my eyes right now, looking at the computer screen? It's not a gender, it's not a label, but what is that? And through deeper contemplation practices, meditation practices, we start to experience us beyond the limited self. This will then start to unfold you into self-transcendence. And it's not to bypass this human experience. It's more about transcending old ways of relating to life. And then the next fold is self-transformation, that you start to transform old habits into more productive ones, that pratipaksha bhavana, that sense of starting to change the way that we respond to life, and then starting to evolve the lessons that we need to learn in this lifetime as we start to release old lessons. So this sense of the stages helps us work through creating that strong foundation. And it's very similar to the 12 steps of recovery, and Kashmir Shaivism has a very similar step as well. But that's for another time to kind of play with. So a simple way of being able to work with the first 4 stages is an acronym called RAIN. R-A-I-N, it's on your screen. And the R represents recognize, A represents allow, I investigate, and N nurture with non-judgmental awareness. So when you find yourself getting tripped up and becoming emotionally charged, all of a sudden you start to do that self-awareness, that first stage of yoga, and you start to recognize and acknowledge, oh my gosh, I am really anxious. I feel really nervous. I'm really worried. I feel really uncertain. I feel really ungrounded. Now, the next fold in this is to allow. Now, this one's an interesting one because a lot of the time we don't give ourselves the permission to actually feel our feelings and thoughts because we're too busy being human doings rather than human beings. So this idea is that what our practice provides us a relationship with the breath. The breath becomes the teacher into processing, digesting, and kind of just kind of releasing the pressure off of these strong feelings and thoughts, this kind of discharge of energy. So the sense of allowing as you breathe in allows greater space for what is yours to feel. And as you exhale, there's a sense of the pattern of the exhale of letting go, of surrendering, of offering a sense of trust into your experience, and ultimately that sense of acceptance. So as we inhale and exhale, we allow greater room for what is ours to feel, what is ours to be thinking, and how our body is digesting what is going on for us. I feel really anxious. Okay, the next one is to investigate, to take an inventory, to inquire deeper inwards. Whereas this is, okay, where am I feeling this anxiousness? Does it feel all in here? Does it feel right here? Is it right here? Is it right in my tummy? Is it in my pelvis? Do I feel like the energy, I just want to jump out of my skin? Or do I feel like I'm just shutting down and disassociating? It's like, how is this manifesting? Is it red? Is it blue? Is it, is it sharp pricklies? Or is it, do I feel like I'm whirling? So you start to create a language to investigate, how is this manifesting in you? The N is to nurture with non-judgmental awareness. And this is a hard one because culturally we are not really taught how to self-parent and to take care of ourselves. We are, told that we're not enough as we are. So we might as well buy this new yoga water bottle and we'll be great, and buy this new yoga brand. And if you wear this yoga clothes, you will look so hot and you will be accepted in your community and everybody's going to be jealous, and our Instagram posts and all this kind of stuff. So there's a deep insecurity constantly around, accepting ourselves and loving ourselves just as we are. So I want to give us a little tiny bit of a practice. And we're going to practice rain. And it's working with no and yes. And I got these practices from one of my teachers, Tara Brock, which she got them from someone else. So it's just a practice that we've been passing that down. But I think it's a really practical tool, especially in asana, when we practice, because we can have the most amazing form, but in our head, we might be dealing with the biggest demons. So that idea that when you catch yourself, what is between you and being present in practice, all of a sudden you can do this. And this is another part of rain, to recognize, allow, investigate, and learn how to nurture. So I would really, 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 please, I'm gonna ask you to call up something that makes you anxious, but I don't want you to go into any acute stress, that like anxiousness right now or any kind of post-traumatic trauma. I want something that you can work with right now that makes you feel a little bit nervous, like going to the grocery store and, it might be, just financial insecurities. Do use something that you're experiencing some anxiety around, whether it's minimal to moderate, but just not extreme right now, because I can't support you and we can't process it and discharge it. So I'd like you to just close your eyes, and I want you to draw up this anxiety and really have the context of the story. Tell yourself the story. What brings it up? Maybe what unique words that might be shared. Maybe it's with someone or with your current government, or, but just like bring up and notice in your head right now the certain thoughts and the kind of energy that is kind of whirling in your head, and you might feel it in your throat or maybe your chest. Your breath might become shallow and short. You might have a little pain in your tummy that you feel a little bit maybe nauseous, or you might find that you have maybe some vertigo, or it makes your tummy flip. You might start sweating a little bit or feel fidgety, or you might resist this and kind of go, I don't want to go there. I don't need to go there. I'm there all the time. And so you start judging and criticizing, attaching to certain negative core false beliefs, like I'm really shit at this. So just feel the feelings, see the images, experience the sensations. And I want you to start saying no to yourself. A steady stream of no, 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 no. Notice how that sound of no, the meaning of no, starts to make you feel. Notice how intense by saying no, no to your anxiety already. All right. Open your eyes, big deep inhale. Reach your arms up and exhale. Do it again. Inhale. Okay, one more. Okay. So when we have a big charge like that, that's one of the techniques, is to actually somatically release it. Big deep inhale, we're allowing it. Exhale, releasing it, just releasing it, okay? So I want you to do the same thing, but I'm gonna offer you the word yes. So I want you to close your eyes again. I want you to call up the same story. I want you to feel the sweating, the nervousness, the anxiousness, anxiety, the narrative, the images, the kind of inner voices that, you know, why am I always anxious? Why can't I keep my stuff together? Why, you know, why is it affecting me and not someone else? Why am I so sensitive? Feel that sense of that inner turmoil, that kind of doom and rumination around your anxiety that you're not enough as you are. You keep falling short. I'm so scared. Life doesn't feel okay. And I want you to now start saying yes, 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 yes. Feel the word yes and how the body responds, the energy body responds, the mind responds to yes, this too. Yes, this belongs. Yes, I'm okay. Yes, I'm right here. Yes, I matter to myself. Yes, yes. All right, open the eyes. Take a big deep breath in. You might want to reach your arms up and exhale. So, interesting, our language really affects us. And a lot of the time, we're going around doing japa, if anybody does mantra practice, you know, and we do japa, which is repetition, and we usually use the beads, is that we normally do a japa like, oh, I'm so stupid. Oh, I'm so ugly. Oh, I'm so old. Oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, you know, in this negative no, 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 especially when we're in high anxiety stages. We find that we are ruminating and reinforcing this language of negative self-talk. So I would really, really recommend when you catch yourself, cultivate, let me just go back to here, cultivate, practice. This is opportunity to practice. Okay, what was the first stage? I need to become aware. I need to recognize it. I need to acknowledge it. Okay, stinking thinking is a slogan. It's an easy one. Stinking thinking, and then you label it. You know, critical mind, judgmental mind, resisting mind. You know, you can kind of label it. And when all of a sudden the nervousness, the anxiousness, the whatever is happening, when you label it and recognize that self-awareness, you start to understand, wow, I'm holding a lot of stuff right now. Okay, yes, this belongs. Okay, what is it trying to say to me? This idea of self-understanding. And eventually through practice, okay, breathe, allow greater space. Let it go, okay. Release some of this, discharge it, you know, the sense of this undigested energy that I'm storing. How can I release it? The self-understanding and self-knowledge of how to bespoke my practices to meet my needs. Okay, now I have investigated. How do I nurture it? Okay, what can I do? The self-understanding is the sense of, you know, how can I be present and learn from the situation? Then through this kind of like process, there's a sense of acceptance that dawns through this letting go and handing your will and your life over to the care of your practices, doing its will for you, not your own. You step back and allow some breathing room, and then nurture, and through positive self-thought. So this is a practice. The yes and no is a good one to put into asana, as well as rain, is that you go, like all of a sudden you wake up in a yoga pose and you're just like, and you're like, wow, I recognize I'm screaming in my own head and my heart. Okay, how can I allow this to be? How can I just allow anger to be raging right now in this yoga pose? Breathing room, breathe it in, breathe directly into the center of it. Big long exhale. Okay, what is going on? What's going on for Zephyr right now? What's triggered this reaction? And all of a sudden there's a little commentary, a little bit of inventory taking. And then, okay, so in the next few poses, how can we take care of ourselves? Do I need a little bit more inhale? Do I need a little bit more exhale? Do I need to back off and slow down? Do I need to speed up? And so there's that sense of understanding yourself. Because on your mat is one thing, but you're going to experience this off your mat too. And this is the idea of practicing these principles in all of your affairs. And this comes from the Yoga Sutras again in Sutra 1, Sutra 30. Sorry, Chapter 1, Sutra 30. And it's the 9 obstacles we face in life. So the first obstacle that we're facing right now is disease. But if you haven't gotten the coronavirus yet, you're probably at dis-ease because there's this anxiousness like, how is it going to affect me? Am I going to lose my life partner? Are they going to lose me? Am I going to lose my parents? Am I going to lose my job? You know, all of a sudden this dis-ease creates this obstacle that we need to face with that brings up the anxiety. There's also disconnection. And this is a part of our kind of reality of our life of isolating right now, is there's a sense of disconnecting, and we feel very alone. And we feel like we're the only ones going through this. And everybody else on Instagram is doing such a better job dealing with this and being so proactive. I'm like just trying to figure out what day of the week it is. And, you know, if I'm going to run out of toilet paper, and am I going to have to use a bucket to wash my bum? So it's just like, oh my God, this compare and despair, the sense of, you know, feeling separate and disconnected from not only everybody else, but a higher power of our understanding. The other obstacle we're going to face is self-doubt. We're going to be like, you know, like, I'm not good enough. I like, who am I to be telling you guys about this stuff? You know, I'm just like a normal, you know, 41-year-old woman who's gone through a bit of things, but I'm not a professional. I don't have a degree in this. Well, you know, all of a sudden I start doubting myself, which then becomes an obstacle. Then there's carelessness, this sense of kind of, you know, just dwindling your energy, you know, spending 5 hours on Facebook and Instagram, and all of a sudden you're just careless with your energy and you have nothing to give to make dinner for your family or engage with anybody else. So there's that sense. There's a dullness and apathy. There's this kind of sense of depression that you're going to have to face. Another one's procrastination. Anybody else feeling like that? It's like, oh, I don't want to do the things I actually need to do. I just want to do the things that I really like. Yesterday I spent, you know, 6 hours on Yoga Alliance US and Yoga Alliance UK, updating all my teaching hours and training hours that I haven't done since 2016. Guess what I was procrastinating? Doing this workshop and going through this. The 7th one is led and controlled by your senses. Again, notifications on your phone. You know that BBC notification alert? Do you know how that just brings up so much anxiety every time I hear that, like, bulletin post? So I'm like, oh my God, my senses are constantly like, and I react, and all of a sudden it gives me that ping of anxiety, of flight and freeze and flee mechanism. And then the lack of concentration. We don't concentrate the way that we read, the way that we receive information right now. If it's more than 160 words, we're bored, you know? We're like, if it's longer than any Twitter feed, we can't read it anymore because of the way that we are conditioning ourselves. And that becomes an obstacle that we find it really difficult to concentrate. And it's like being in a yoga pose, just concentrating on one breath, how difficult that is. One pose for 5 breaths in the Ashtanga movement. Oh my God, how often does my mind wander? And then instability. We all are experiencing this right now, instability. So these are the obstacles, and it's really nice to have them because it kind of is like, I'm not going insane. This is a couple thousand years old, and Patanjali was a guy, and he was like, oh, yeah, this seems common. And it's very relevant for today. So it's a nice list that we start to recognize and acknowledge and understand ourselves a little bit more and going, I can name it. I can say, I am experiencing procrastination today. Okay, that's an obstacle. What did the foundation say? Oh, I need to be aware of it. How's it manifesting in me? Recognize and acknowledge it. Understanding, why am I procrastinating? What am I trying not to face? And so there's this sense of practice, constantly practicing, practice. All right, so I wanted to give us a little bit regards to understanding the gunas, because each one of us are going to react a little bit differently in an anxiety state. So there's this kind of rajasic guna, which is really to do with kind of movement. It's to do with the sense of, with the mind and energy body, it's more about kind of being paranoid, obsessive, the sense of being in perpetual fear. It's this explosive kind of behavior. It's being impatient, intolerant. It's this kind of stimulated, aggravated energy of anxiety. And the tamasic side, that dark, heavy, dull side, is to do with more about being disassociated, being completely numb, and void of having any kind of emotional reaction, and this sense of kind of numbing out and kind of lethargy and spaciness that we'll feel with anxiety. So that sense that you're dealing with anxiety is very different depending on your dosha imbalance, and again, that's borrowing from the Ayurvedic kind of system. So if you're Vata imbalanced, it's going to be very different than if you're Pitta imbalanced or if you're Kapha imbalanced. So it's to start to understand yourself, your imbalances, and what practices will lead you to the middle path towards balance, towards equanimity, towards this sense of clarity within you. So I think it's really important to kind of recognize and give more language to saying, this is a really rajasic experience right now. Okay, how can I experience more of the sattvic quality? Or if I'm really tamasic, how can I experience sattva? Because do know that rajas cannot exist for long. And as you all know, in high levels of stress and anxiety, you either dry up or burn out. And it will go to the extreme. Depression is just unresolved anxiety. And it's long-term kind of dealing with anxiety issues. And we go from one rajasic to a very tamasic, which becomes chronic. And there's a lot of kind of disease, chronic disease. Rajasic's more inflammation and kind of immediacy of headaches and, you know, that kind of active form. But long-term exposure, it all of a sudden goes into that very tamasic. So the sense of acknowledging, God, wow, how can I bring myself to a middle path around this? So there's, you know, a lot through studying Ayurvedic and more of these kind of practices that will help you. And I'm going to hopefully expose a little bit more around this. So vichara practices are practices to take self-inventory, to investigate. So that was in that reign. I is to investigate, to inquire, to take self-inventory. And this is a part of our practice. It's a part of the kind of yogic principles of understanding yourself, of self-reflecting, of self-contemplating, and creating a dialogue to connect to that viveka, which is the eyes of discernment. And you can kind of see viveka like a bird. So the eyes of discernment from right and wrong, real and unreal, true and untrue, virtuous and unvirtuous, that really sense of that buddhi, that inner knowing, that intuitive voice within you that knows this. One wing of viveka is abhyasa, which is focused, diligent practice, and vairagya, letting go of sensory observation. So as you all of a sudden recognize what's kind of going on, you allow breathing space as you practice and you investigate kind of what's going on. There's that process of accepting, of letting go, that vairagya. So again, these principles are being repeated because this is how we learn, and this is how I learned. So apologies for repetition, but hopefully this will start to sink in. So one English prayer that I got from recovery that really helps me when all of a sudden I catch myself in anxiety or trying to control something or reacting in a very strong way is the Serenity Prayer. And you might not understand a God. You don't have an Ishvara, you're atheist, highest virtue of man, or you can do the acronym GOD, good orderly direction. Yeah. So again, yoga is not a religion, but it's a spiritual practice, but it embraces all spiritualities. So whatever you want to put there. So higher power, source, but higher power of our understanding, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Everything, if you're sitting, everything outside you cannot change. But the courage to change the things I can. How do I react? How do I respond? How do I take responsibility and accountability for myself? How do I nurture myself and take care of myself? The wisdom to know the difference between the two. And that I say every day when I need to. It just anchors me, and it's like, oh, okay, I can see I was trying to become really powerful over something that is completely unmanageable and is making my mind, my body, and my energy body completely unmanageable. So I offer that to you and see how those words sing for you. But you might have an experience with that Serenity Prayer and you don't like it. There's so many more other ones out there. But I wanted to also offer you one of the solutions to dealing with the obstacles. It comes from the Yoga Sutras. And actually, let me step back. Actually, so the results of all those obstacles that you're going to have to deal with in your life, the sutras in 131, just right before this sutra, says that the symptoms are 4 symptoms that we'll notice. So we'll start to recognize in us. The first one is emotional distress. We all of a sudden have emotional distress, and that's what we need to start to practice and awake to and recognize in ourselves. The second one in the sutras says negative thinking. So we start to clock the stinking thinking. The fourth is being unsteady in your body. And I'm sure when you're anxious, your nervous system is so fried. You're like shaking in practice or in yourself, or you're fidgeting, or you want to jump out of your skin and run away, or you're completely shut down, lethargic, fatigued, but there's this restlessness inside that you just, are unmanaging that. Then the fourth is actually looking at the disturbed breathing patterns, which mirror the mind, as the breath and the mind swim in tandem of prana and consciousness. So we start to see that the results of dealing with these obstacles and the symptoms of these obstacles will manifest with those 4. Sutra 131. But the solutions to working with these obstacles in the Yoga Sutras, there's 9 solutions. There's 2 more before this one, and I have them written down here. Chapter 129, that it suggests that we move inwards as the obstacles arise. And this idea of Ishvara Pranadhana, of surrendering, handing your will over, the Serenity Prayer, whatever in which you can start to be open and willing to be guided by your practice. That sense of going inwards and going, what's going on for me? The next solution is chapter 132, and it says focus on the one thing at a time, because sometimes anxiety is like everywhere. We feel overwhelmed. So it's like, okay, let's just focus on our throat right now. There's massive contraction. My voice has changed. I'm speaking really quickly. Okay, let's just focus on this symptom right now. Okay, let's bring some. Okay, then we're going to deal with the stuff in our chest. Then we're going to deal with our tummy. So focus on one thing at a time. And then it comes to Sutra 133, which suggests that we should be cultivating 4 things in practice. Non-judgmental awareness. Second one is friendliness. The third is happiness. And the fourth is compassion. So in practice, what we're meant to be cultivating when we get on practice is those 4 things. And a lot of us, I know, myself included, I'm giving myself such a hard time. I'm going, God, you're not enough. Oh, why'd you say this? And you're like going into future planning or ruminating about something that happened in the past, or trying to like, and you're just like, I'm meant to be breathing, focusing on my breath right now. And all I can do is just like, blah, blah, blah. And so this sense of awakening to that kind of like, oh my gosh, you're really having a hard time, aren't you? Yes, I am. Okay, let's breathe into this next breath. Okay. How can I attend and befriend what is mine to carry? And that's really important, because like if Scott and I were chatting away and he was having a really hard time, I wouldn't be going, pull your big boy pants up, get over yourself, you know, like, come on, you know, who do you think you are? I wouldn't be doing that. I also wouldn't be saying, you know what you should be doing? You should be eating more of an Ayurvedic balanced food, and you should be doing, you know, the second series right now because, you know, you're really, you know, it's like, you don't want to hear that either. How do you be a friend? You be a friend by just holding some space. Holding space to allow someone to learn what they're meant to learn. That's ahimsa. Ahimsa is nonviolence, but really what ahimsa means is to allow space, to allow people to be who they are and let them learn what they need to learn out of life. But you're holding space in a loving, compassionate, non-judgmental way and saying, I'm here, I'm supporting you, and I'm honoring you just as you are. So that sense of attending and befriending, how would you be your own best friend? Going, oh, Zeph, you're having a really hard time right now. Okay, I'm right here. Okay, I'm not leaving you, Zeph. Okay, what do you need right now? And so this idea of starting a conversation with yourself and being your own spiritual parent, because there's a lot of the time when we investigate, this is not new how we respond to life. This is old patterns that we grew up with and have been repeating over and over. Hence why in the later stages of yoga, we're looking towards self-actualization, of becoming more of that discerning awareness, more into the buddhi, into the dhyana maya kosha, which I'll talk about in just a second. And starting to kind of be the kind of spiritual parent over how the physical body, energetic body, and the mind is interpreting your human experience. And so the next one that we're meant to be cultivating is a sense of delight and joy in practice, being like opening that wise wonderment, that playfulness in us. Like, how big can I make my breath? How long can I breathe into this? How, you know, where can that sensation lead me? That sense of being embodied and being touched by that natural joy of being alive. And then that sense of compassion, of kind of self-nurturance. So there's those that is like really important. But the other things that the solutions comes from Sutra 1.34 to 1.39. And the solutions to these obstacles, to these aggravations, is that you focus, you effortlessly meditate on breath awareness, sensation, illumination, the light within you. That you focus on someone, a deity, or a mantra, and embodying the meaning of that mantra. And then you then explore dream states of consciousness, of pure light of awareness, that kind of ananda experience of the bliss body, beyond the physical realm, beyond the energetic and mental realm, that space where you feel whole and complete and at one. And then if none of those really work, dealing with your obstacles, Patanjali, it's quite funny in Sutra 139, he's like, well, if none of those work, just meditate on anything that's useful and pleasing, which I thought was quite funny. So I just think these are the kind of some of the solutions. And if you can't remember any of those, these four of cultivating, like what am I meant to be cultivating in practice today? These four: non-judgmental awareness, equanimity in my mind and heart, the sense of attending and befriending what is mine, of being touched by that natural joy of being embodied just for today, and that sense of compassion, that loving kindness for ourselves. All right. I always pack far too much in these lectures, and I could probably do 2 days worth, but I just want to really quickly go through this, that sometimes helps us understand karma a little bit, because we kind of lump karma in one bag, and actually the in the back of the Gita talks about the 3 karmas. So there's active karma, which is represented by the arrows. You are the yogi, the adhikara, which is the person standing there. And so your target is the goal of your life. the goal of your dharma, the goal, your purpose, what you're meant to be doing here, awakening to what you've always been, that pure light of consciousness. So the active karma is the karma that you were born into. So some of it, the arrows have already flown and you have to deal with the consequence of either hitting your target or missing it. But the karma that's in the satchel that you reach back is dormant karma, sanchita karma. And this is the arrows of you being a 6-year-old self, a 12-year-old self, 17-year-old self, 25-year-old self, 45-year-old self, you know, whatever arrow. And it's the adhikara, the archer. How skilled are you to be awake, understand yourself, and accept life as it is, detaching with love for a moment and responding rather than reacting. Your reaction, like when I get emotionally triggered, I will go and grab the 16-year-old arrow and be like, I'm going to punish you by withholding love. Yeah. Or you have another arrow where all of a sudden you're 25-year-old and you're like, I'm going to go and get shit-faced and I'm going to drink myself into a stupor. Or you grab another arrow and you're 41. You're like, actually, I'm going to go reach out to one of my friends, process this with someone else. I'm going to go and practice, do a meditation practice that really suits me and how I'm going to contain this situation. So depending on your wakefulness, when life all of a sudden brings something up, which arrow are you going to pull? The kriyamana karma, which is on the ground, or potential karma. So you're making karma all the time. Your choices, you're a sum total of all your choices. Every choice that you have ever made right now, you're a sum total of it. So are your choices right now drawing you farther away from spirit or closer away? And so this is the idea of making your arrows. How, you know, what choices are you doing? And then how are you storing those arrows? So when life all of a sudden needs you to act, to do this act in life, make a choice, you're like, I see my target. I know what matters to me most. What do I care about the most? What is my intention today? You know, what is, you know, my purpose? How open and curious am I to kind of, okay, let's try this, even though I'm scared. So finding that courage to be able to choose more wisely. This will then start to unfold into a next map that starts this investigation of understanding yourself. And this is probably the most therapeutic map we have. The koshas are different sheaths and layers, and you can see it kind of like a lampshade. The bulb is your soul, and you have lampshades covering the bulb. And you turn on this light, but if your lampshades are really, really thick and dense, that light won't be able to penetrate those lampshades, and no one can actually benefit from your light, and you can't actually receive light through. So this idea is that what we're trying to do in yoga and meditation is to create this transparency and clarity, this purification, this kriya practice, to be able to clear these sheaths so the light and the intelligence of this light can go through the sheath. So the Annamaya kosha is your physical body, and our physical body is very, very vulnerable. Anna means food, and so what you eat, you become. And eventually when you die, you become food for something else. But it's very, very linked to the pranamaya kosha, which is your energy body. It's your vitality. It's what keeps you alive, and it holds the chakra system and the nadis. And it's that pranic sheath that really helps the annamaya kosha function. Then we have the manamaya kosha, which is the mental sheath, which is highly related to your energy sheath. If you're really rajasic, your mind's thoughts are really rajasic, and you physically are rajasic. Or if you're feeling really tamasic energy-wise, your mind's like dull and tired, and your body's lethargic. So there's this sense of the first three koshas is what we're really focusing on a day-to-day practice. This disciplined practice of awareness and understanding and accepting wherever you wake up to, whatever you wake up to. So what we're trying to do is clear the first three sheaths. This practice of like the cha-cha-cha, the first four stages, is really to attend the first four sheaths, or three sheaths, sorry, and create a harmonized relationship where they are clearer and more accessible, and they can function at a healthier level. Underneath that is the wisdom body. And when we do meditation and contemplation practices, when we get quiet and still, we listen, we open to that intuitive knowing, that higher knowing, that universal knowledge within us, and that discernment, that discriminative awareness. So that wisdom body is where yogis are really trying to rest most of the time in, rather than being obsessed with the physical body, being too tied up and concerned about your energy body, and also spending far too much time in your own head. That's not fun. I know it's not a fun place for me. So this idea of really spending more time in the wisdom body. Beyond the wisdom body is the Anandamaya Kosha, which is the bliss body. It is that pure conscious awareness in deep sleep, where the dreamless state of sleep, in yoga nidra, in deep, deep meditation, where all of a sudden you don't know you're there until you leave it. So when you arrive in the Anandamaya Kosha, you're awake, but you have no self-referencing point because you're one. You merged into the collective consciousness, that you know you're awake, but you don't know who you are and where you are. And as soon as you go, oh, that was really cool, all of a sudden you pull yourself out of it. And I'm sure we've all experienced that in meditation. And then beyond that is your soul. So this map is a really kind of clear map that gives you kind of like, okay, physical body, energetic body, mental body. Okay, what is behind my eyes perceiving that wakefulness? Tap into that and start to look at how I can actually bespoke my practices. So an easier kind of one that my students find really kind of applicable to them is actually looking at the vessels, and seeing the kind of whole body, the koshas, as kind of a vessel. And we have an upside down vessel. This has come from a Buddhist teaching, and it's just a representation of the physical body, energetic body, mental body. And sometimes we have an upside down vessel, and that vessel, you can't pour any goodness into it. It's closed. There's no way for anything to come in. And so usually these people are very closed-minded and close-hearted. They're usually they're completely shut down, and they're just not interested in hearing what you have to say. They're not interested in having any support. They're just locked down. And they are also very ignorant about how their behavior affects everybody else. There's also a dirty vessel, where there's this sense that anything, goodness, the purest teachings that you pour into it gets contaminated because there's unresolved physical, emotional, and psychic kind of toxicity in it that contaminates everything. And this is the idea of working with your samskaras, your memories that kind of create this continual trauma and anxiety that reinforces this kind of way of bringing everything that you experience and kind of going, you know, like one of my husbands died about 8 years ago, and I'm remarried. And, you know, in the first few years, every time I really loved him and kind of allowed him in, there's a spike of anxiety, like, what if he dies? What if he dies too? And so there's this samskara that is unresolved and undigested, and I had to work a lot about trusting and handing over. And, you know, if it happens, I'll be okay. But it's no point in trying to hold and attach and grasp and cling. So that's just an example of that. There's a tilted vessel. Tilted vessels, if anybody's thrown clay, says that if you don't have the bottom flat and the top flat, it's going to be crooked. You can't pour the goodness. It can't fill to capacity. And so there's this kind of tilted or distorted viewpoint, or a perspective that I can't do second series because genetically my parents gave me this body and I just can't. And so it's like, interesting, you know, or like I have flat feet, and so certain yoga poses are really difficult for me. I'm hypermobile, and so I can't do certain yoga poses. So there's this part of me that holds on to my kind of limitation as a kind of crutch. And I'm broken, or I'm not broken, but I'm tilted. And so there's this kind of attachment to a distorted viewpoint, which then I either blame other people or blame myself. And then it creates, you know, this inability to really receive all teachings. And or the leaky vessel. And the leaky vessel, as everybody, you have all intention of bringing in the goodness. It's like, oh, yes, this is good stuff. But then we can't hold our attention and it leaks out. And this is just a bookmark to kind of today's society, because we're always looking at our phone and we're always distracted by, little things. We're in our practice and all of a sudden someone comes in the room, we have to look at them instead of focusing on our practice. So it's just an interesting one in regards to kind of going, wow, okay, what am I today? I feel like an upside down vessel. I'm totally shut down. Or I feel like today I'm a dirty vessel. Or today I feel just completely affected by my ailments and my shape of my body won't do what I want. But today I feel really leaky. You can be a composite. I just noticed. Yeah, you can be a mixture of all of them or a couple of them. But it's just to create more like a map to kind of understand yourself a little bit more. And I think this is what I'm just trying to offer you is that this might resonate, or the kosha system might resonate more with you. But whatever you can kind of use to create a greater understanding and self-knowledge about yourself and how to kind of be able to take care of you. So there's another little map that I want to really give you. And it's 11:07, so we have 25 more minutes. So the other map is the Granthis, which I love working with, especially I can really feel it when I practice. These are the physical, psycho-emotional knots within the body. So working with the chakras is great, but chakras open in deep contemplation and meditation. Chakras do not open in movement in real life. They're not open. It's just a misconception, but there's a certain distortion and a certain energetic holding, and it's almost like a squeaky door that sometimes the hinges are not allowing the door to open. So these physical, psycho-emotional knots are kind of more applicable to real life practice, I find. So you'll also notice in different yoga traditions, they have the Rudra, Vishnu, and Brahma Granthi in different orders. And I have tried to research all of them. This is the one that makes sense to me because Brahma Granthi, Brahma is the creator, Vishnu is the sustainer, and Rudra is, death. It's an aspect of Shiva. It's to transition to the next stage. So regards to the Kundalini arising, of working from base to crown, of what the yogis are trying to do. And when they do awaken Kundalini, it's usually a passing into the next realm. So this order made sense for me. And this is how I teach it because it makes sense. But other schools make sense the other way. Anyway, Brahma Granthi covers the lower three chakras. And usually this physical, psycho-emotional holding is to do with, so the base chakra, Muladhara chakra, is to do with fear. So anxiety is right there. If you scare an animal, it usually poops or pisses itself. And the same thing when we get, scared, especially if you had a few children, you're like, and you just do yourself a little bit. So there's a sense of either a lack of tone, tamasic, or too much tone, rajasic. And so there's this kind of sense of, you can see this kind of rajasic, tamasic quality of these granthis. So the second chakra, Svadhisthana, is to do with self-gratification. Let me go back. Muladhara is to do with self-preservation and survival. So it's about creating trust, grounding, health, and ultimately its issues are around fear. Svadhisthana is to do with gratification, desire, creativity, procreation, but our issues around that are usually stem from guilt. And around Manipura is to do with self-definition, identification, our purpose, our drive, our self-esteem, but usually around that area is our issues around shame. So when in practice, working with Brahma Granthi, you'll start to feel that you're either really like your bowels are bunged up, you're either constipated, or you're really loose, or you have that same kind of thing with the kind of muscular structure of the pelvis. Either it's too tight or too loose. So that kind of rajasic, tamasic kind of quality to it. So that idea is that physical, psycho-emotional holding, the physical holding to your physical body, and then the emotions, as your gut is your second brain, the emotions are stored in there around fear, guilt, and shame. And we hold a lot of that in our lives. And so you'll start to feel how your energetic body is holding either in a rajasic or a tamasic way. And then the mental attitude, the kind of those deep voices of conscious thought or unconscious thought that stem up, are held in those areas. We all need to work on Brahma. So what's really good with Brahma Granthi is to do asana and Uddiyana Mula Bandha Kriya, working on cleaning that area, working with certain kriyas, mudras. So physical practice is really good for helping unravel Brahma Granthi. And so when you're in practice, all of a sudden you recognize that you're having issues around fear. Notice your sphincter. How is it the physical? Energetically, what's going on there? Mentally, kind of what you're dealing with. Maybe there might be tied into feeling guilty because you should have done this, or you should have prepared like that, or why, and or shame. And so all of a sudden you start to see how Brahma Granthi can really kind of contribute to anxiousness and fear. The next Granthi is Vishnu Granthi, around your heart and throat. Anahata is to do with self-acceptance mainly. We always think it's like love, but it's really about acceptance, radical acceptance for ourselves and life as it is, but it's to do with the balance of our relationships, and also how we communicate with each other, how do we share our truth, how do we express our own resonance, our creativity. So around this, the physical, psycho-emotional knot, we have inability to accept ourselves, our resentments, our grudges, the sense of lack of self, kind of, connection to ourselves or others. And then our inability, little lies we say, inability to speak our truth, or we share far too much. So there's that physical, psycho-emotional knot around here. What really helps, asana is really good. It's not just back bending, heart opening. Heart opening, your heart's behind you too. Heart's over here too. It's about 360-degree opening. So creating a complete practice to open us in that way. But also what really works is chanting. I'm glad Scott's doing that with you guys, is chanting is really good. In your throat, it's to do with sound. So you need to create that resonance and release it. And whether it's pranayama, chanting, sound really helps this whole Vishnu Granthi unravel itself. Rudra Granthi is around the head, and it's to do with Ajna Chakra, to be able to command and perceive your life with that accurate perception, and to receive knowledge and to really understand and digest it. So our issues around there, we get headaches, we get hallucinations, we get nightmares, we have an inability to receive information, we're completely shut down, all the doors in our brain shut down. So there is this sense that there's a knot that prevents us. And so what helps with this is attuning our attention to actually what we're meant to be cultivating. So finding the step-by-step from the stages of yoga, practicing rain, of using your attention to being productive in what you're finding difficult, and identifying which obstacle it is and how best to serve to create balance and acceptance ultimately. So a lot of contemplative practices, meditation, yoga nidra are really good for unraveling Rudra Granthi. But in practice, it's more about attuning your attention and effortlessly perceiving your breath awareness, sensation, inner luminosity, mantra, pure conscious awareness, or anything that is useful and pleasing. Yeah. So, yeah, motherhood kill. Yeah, trust me. I'm going to bypass talking about neurology, and I'm going to just go straight towards Patanjali's way of the yoga map of the mind. And I think this is really helpful. Let me just check this. 15 minutes. Okay, let me get this. So indriyas are your senses. This is how we perceive life. And if you're very rajasic and anxious right now and not stimulating, all your senses are going to be really, really stimulated. It's going to be constantly eye movement. You're going to be like, what's that sound? What's that sound? And everything's going to be really stimulated. And so this interprets and goes into the computer screen of your brain, the lower mind, called the manas. And this is a very reactive mind. This is where we have unconscious, patterns that are stored here. So we don't have to do conscious thinking. Like you didn't have to think which pant leg hole to put your leg through first. You didn't think about which hand needed to grab your toothbrush and which side you needed to brush first. It's already in there. It's unconscious. And your manas just goes, I'm going to open that file. I already got this. I'm going to just brush my teeth like this. I don't even have to think about it. And your senses go, oh, there's a tooth. I need to brush my teeth. There's where I hold my toothbrush, and this is how I'm going to brush it. So our manas is like the computer screen of our brain. And you have certain files open. And so depending on which files are open right now, it's going to create this kaleidoscope or stained glass window of perspective. Now, if most of your files are open of anxiety, all of a sudden you're going to perceive life as anxious, and everything that you interpret is going to be anxious. So this is starting to now, like, pointing back to chit consciousness. Chitta consciousness within the mind holds your samskaras, your impressions, and your memories, whether positive or negative. It's all your memories that you've experienced, and sometimes they like to say previous life memories. But this is also where it holds your vasanas, your personal habitual tendencies, because how you react to anger is very different than I do. How you react to a loud bang in the street will be very different than I do. How you react to anything is going to be different, and this is personal to us. And so, you know, how you self-pacify and take care of yourself, these habitual tendencies are already established, and they're individual to you. We know vritti from chitta vritti nirodha, that sense of mental disturbances and fluctuations are held here too. You know, your habits of going into this unconscious loop and kind of like speed bumps in the mind that pull you out of concentrating on what you're meant to be focusing on. Then we have the Omkara, which is the eye maker. And it's not a bad thing to have an ego. We all need an ego because it goes, oh, Zephyr's body needs to go pee. Zephyr's body needs to eat. Zephyr's body needs to sleep. Zephyr's body needs a cuddle. So our ego keeps us functioning in this world, but it's the distorted sense of self that starts to corrupt us. And this is one of the kleshas, which I'll talk about, the asmita. But the ego function is to create labels. I am Zephyr. I am a woman. Scott is a man. I am so different than you because you can't relate to me because we are different. It creates separation. And so the way in which our mind is perceiving life and receiving is because of these. What we're trying to do is purify the indriyas, purify your senses through practice. That's why we gaze at one point, that justi, why we really breathe through the nose, why we slightly release the jaw and open up ujjayi breath to open up our ears and welcome all sounds, receiving all, rejecting none. You know, we refine our senses through practice. We dissolve whatever is arising for us, that practice, that you let go of sensory observation. You're like, oh, thinking, practice. Oh, feeling, practice. And so all of a sudden you start to, calm the manas, you dissolve the kind of ego self, the limited self, and then you start to neutralize your memories and your stored impressions by kind of start to going, wow, that's an interesting memory that popped up. And those memories do not grab you, pull you down, and drag you against the floor anymore. There's a sense that you have worked with this in such a productive yogic way where the memories might come up and you used to respond in a very post-traumatic stress disorder kind of way, but now you just are like, ooh. So with this, we start to then nurture buddhi, this higher wisdom body, and discernment, intuitive side, that we then start to work with more of the kind of understanding prakriti and purusha. So we're all very familiar as ashtangis with regards to the kleshas, because this is one of the teachings in the sutras, is working with avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, and abhinivesha. So with avidya is a lack of awareness, asmita is the distorted sense of self, that egotism, thinking more or less of who you are. Raga is clinging addictively to previous experienced pleasures. Dvesha is this avoidance, aversion of like, oh, I don't want it. And abhinivesha is a part of all of us. It's a natural fear that we're going to die. We're going to lose someone we love. And it's very much about our kind of self-preservation. So I wanted to give you this little Dharma wheel, this wheel of dukkha, wheel of suffering, which will hopefully make sense a little bit of everything that we've just gone through. And we're going to do a little meditation. So avidya is misapprehension. You're not seeing life as it is. And this sense is that, say for instance, this lecture, I'm seeing your guys' faces and I'm going, no, a lot of them are looking away from the screen. Maybe they're bored. Maybe they're not getting it. They don't have shy faces. Or maybe I'm not funny enough. So all of a sudden, this avidya of me not really accurately perceiving what you guys are looking like to me will all of a sudden go into my own karma and my own vasanas, my habitual tendencies, because all of a sudden I'm recognizing, oh, they don't look like they're having fun. And I'm going to pull out this arrow of like, I'm the worst, like a 13-year-old self when I was properly shamed in front of a classroom that I wasn't smart enough and good enough. And I'm just going to pull that arrow out and I'm going to start to shoot it. And what this does is it goes into the physical, psycho-emotional grooves in my body and my mind. And all of a sudden I can feel my body starting to kind of knot up and grip and create this kind of sensation in my body. All of a sudden, all these memories of when I failed at lectures and I made a big tit of myself. And all of a sudden, this will go through the sense organs. And all of a sudden, I'm seeing so much movement. And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my God, they don't like me anymore. They think I'm a fraud. And this will all of a sudden, the way that I perceive will get distorted. This will create sensations in my body of anxiety. And all of a sudden, I'm going to have some things. And this will be like the feeling of bhava, or the essence of emotions, or bhava is the kind of flavor of the emotions. Rasa is the kind of essence of the emotions. And whether it's a rajasic or tamasic emotion, I'll do one of two things. I will go to raga, going, I'm going to eat a cupcake after this because that always makes me feel better. Or I'm going to go drink a glass of wine, even though it's, 11:30 in the morning. I don't care. I need a glass of wine. Or I'm going to go and do a 5-mile run because I just want to avoid feeling like this. And I know that will make myself feel better. Or I go into devesha and I go into all sorts of kind of like aversion, blame. Well, I don't like this community because I'm not in Ashtangi anymore and I do Tantra and I'm better than them and I don't like them. They don't know what I'm doing. And all of a sudden this kind of narrative gets intense and all of a sudden it starts to go into the story of me, mine, and I, this Omkara, that I'm the worst yogi lecturer in the world, teacher in the world. And this Ashmita, this distorted sense of self that goes into arrogance. I'm the worst. They don't understand me. I shouldn't be teaching, offering this stuff. Then all of a sudden it will go into a binivesha and it's like, oh, well, without reinforcing this narrative, who am I? I can't forgive me. I made a mistake. And this will go more into the whole avidya. So the solution that Patanjali said, really, his book should be called Kriya Yoga because it's all about the yoga of purification of this thing, is that what he said, stop at the feeling, honor the feeling right now. And so with this feeling, start to practice tapas, practices that create heat for positive change. Svadhyaya, understand yourself, what's going on, gain more self-knowledge. And now what to do? Ishvara Pranadhana, hand your will and your life over to the care of the God of your understanding. If you're not religious, don't have a God, Ishvara, highest virtue of man, love. It's loving awareness. That will slice the A off of avidya and it will make it vidya. So this knowledge, this wisdom that you awaken to will inform now new karma. You'll pull new karmic arrows out of your satchel. You'll start to reinforce new transformation of habitual tendencies. And then all of a sudden, you'll start to create new memories to kind of go, oh, this reminds me of that old memory, but actually I have more of these new memories that actually best serve me. And then because I am the adhikara and because I've been practicing, my computer screen of my lens can actually, it's not as, a kaleidoscope. It's clear, it's more transparent, and I can see the reality as it is. And this will create this, oh, there's a little bit of love, patience, kindness, equanimity in mind and heart. Oh, these are these feelings, but they're not as strong and intense. And we keep practicing. So, oh, I did it. So I want to give you a quick little meditation. And I've recorded this meditation. It's on my website. And pause sharing. And can I go back to here? So if I could get you guys to just come into a position in which we can just practice this meditation. And so if you want to practice this again, I know it's kind of short and it deserves a little bit longer. So I want you to just allow yourself to settle into your body. And whatever sunk, whatever, was planted today from this lecture, may your practice water it, may it grow roots. And you can revisit this. I've been studying this for 21 years and I've gone over and over and over. So let go of any kind of need to know it all right now and just allow it to soak in for a second. And just noticing the residue of the conversation. And you might feel, because we're talking about very provocative things, that there is a sense of dis-ease in you. There's a sense of the anxiety that we've been talking about, but there's also at the same time maybe a comfort, a familiarity to the experience too. So just allow yourself to just receive a few big deep breaths in. Big breath in, long breath out. Focusing on the inflow and the outflow. Watching the body breathe and awakening to the unique sensations of the inhale and the exhale. Awakening to the light behind the eyes, perceiving the body breathing, the light within the heart, feeling. Noticing how sensation and the experience moves as it rises and falls. And I want you to place your anxiety in the front. Feel your anxiety. Feel what makes you anxious right now, fearful, uncertain, worried, nervous. And feel it. And see your anxiety, your pain and suffering through the lens of this timeless expression of grace within you, as you, that is around you. That you are safe and loved and held in its loving arms. And sense yourself open and willing to be guided into your kind of wounds, those areas where you feel that are dark, and directly touching those strong feelings where you feel stuck or they erode like sinkholes in your being. The places where maybe you hold shame, blame, and resentment. Places of fear. And open your sensation to the words of fear. Failure, making mistakes, getting it wrong, disappointment, being seen not as enough, being hurt, losing control, embarrassment, shame, feeling lost. Feel these feelings, the sensations. Awaken and recognize how it manifests in you and where they're arising mainly from. Breathe deeper into the tender attention to your suffering that is present to you right now. And invite the feelings to express themselves fully. Feel the rhythm of the breath, the ride of the swell of your sensation of the inhale, and that release of intensity of your pain, fear, and suffering on the exhale. And begin to acknowledge your feelings and offer certain words of comfort to express and draw them into the light in our loving awareness and capacity to meet them with compassion and empathy. So I want you to say to yourself, whether mentally or verbally, whichever you feel comfortable, I want you to say, even though I feel I need to act out my impulse, I accept myself just as I am. Even though I feel emotionally triggered, I accept myself just as I am. Even though I feel the heat of hurt and the fury of resentment, I accept myself just as I am. Even though I feel anxious, scared, uncertain of my future, I accept myself just as I am. Even though I feel dark and wounded, I accept myself just as I am. Even though I feel like I'm drowning in my grief and my sorrow, I accept myself just as I am. Even though, describe what is present for you and say, I accept myself just as I am. Touch the areas of most need of your attention. Promote healing, growth, and allowing this space to let go and accept. I'd like you to place either one hand to your heart, one hand to your tummy, or both hands onto your heart. You intuitively place your hands where you need. And receive a deep inhale. Feel your own heart swell. And say with sincerity to yourself, I see you. I am here. I am not leaving. You are not alone. I care. Your pain matters to me. I accept this part of me just as it is today. I am doing my best to manage today's unmanageability. I give myself the permission to feel, to be heard, and to express my pain and fear. I see you. My feelings are seen. My intention is to bring healing to this. My intention is to bring love to this. My intention is to bring tenderness to this. My intention is to bring kindness to this. My intention is to forgive myself. I forgive myself. I am open to change, healing, and acceptance. I accept that this is where I am today. I forgive myself. I open my heart and lean in. Feel the fullness of bathing in your light of awareness. Feel yourself more compassionate, accepting, and forgiving of yourself. Ask yourself to fully be present. As you receive, lean in and let go. Sense a transparency, a clarity within you, the physical, energetic, and mental sheaths. That you are whole and complete as you are. Become aware of what is awake and present. As you inhale, whisper to yourself, I receive love. Exhale, I let go of my fear and suffering. I receive peace. I offer forgiveness. I receive acceptance. I let go and trust. Smiling, gazing down into your own heart, thanking yourself for attending this workshop. And may peace be above us, below us, and all around us. But most of all, may peace be within us. And with a quieter mind and an open heart, slowly open the eyes and lower your arms. And softly gaze. So that is just one technique in learning how to use that pratipaksha bhavana, positive words, to really learn how to nurture yourself. And that sense of connecting to your pain, your fear, your suffering, and learning how to self-regulate. So you build more resilience physically, energetically, mentally, spiritually, when all of a sudden you catch yourself spinning out of control. The sense of first stage, self-awareness. Second stage, self-understanding. Third stage, self-acceptance. Fourth stage, discipline. Cha-cha-cha. Thank you very much, Scott, and all of you for paying attention to me. If you have any questions or if you need
That was
me.
great, Zeph. That was amazing. Thank you. That was just beautiful. Like really, really beautiful. And so what I wanted to do now, thank you so much. That was just gorgeous. A really beautiful way of explaining that. So what we want to do now is we've got a little bit of time. We've got a little bit of time, Zephyr, to take some questions. If you guys have got anything you want to ask, you can put your hands up on your screens, or you can put your hands up and I'll kind of unmute you. And because I'm looking at you, those of you who have got your videos on, just ask a question, anything about what you've just seen. I know there was one from Morag that she put on the things. Did you want to answer it?
It was really comprehensively answered in the following kind of parts.
Okay.
I feel like I understand that now. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
No
you.
worries. Okay. So
I was hoping that, like, when I would, it's just like every practice, it's layered. So I kept on like introducing new things, and then I would go over it. Then I introduce, and then I take everything from before and go over it. And then, so this is kind of the way that I learned, because I'm a bit special. I just can't just get things. So I have to do like repetition and weave them together. So hopefully I was able to do that for you.
Right. Awesome. Have you got anyone said, does anyone have anything? Come on, we've got Zephyr here. That was a beautiful thing. You can ask anything. I'm sure.
I'm quite used to this because I've been living in the UK, in London, for 21 years, and it's very different than the States. In the States, they're like, I got something, and Brits are like, no. But then once we kind of get going, all of a sudden you guys are kind of chatty. But if you have something silly, it's probably one question that I've actually raised with my teachers. But if you don't, and if you need some time to digest everything, and if you want to reach out at a later date to me and ask it, you're more than welcome. If it's something really personal, I totally understand that too. So you can always find me. Yes, Ellie?
May I ask something?
Sure.
How can someone who, it's already hard for us to deal with a beloved one who has died, but how can someone really passes through this fear of losing their lives themselves?
The kind of working with a Binivesha of the fear of your own death.
Yeah. Not the fear, there is some substantial evidence that actually, yeah, I need a heart transplant, or I need therapy or whatever. So how can someone really work on that? That's really tough.
Well, I think that's all of our work, because the reality is we're all going to die. We just don't know how and when. And we're always facing a innovation. We're always facing, you know, the loss of our experience. And one of the practices that in Buddhism that they do is and I do this at least once a year for a whole week, and I make the students kind of contemplate this, where you kind of say, okay, in 1 month's time, I'm giving you a death certificate, you're going to die. Would you change anything? And to kind of work on that. And it's like what we're experiencing right now, we've shifted our priorities. What mattered to us a month and a half ago is very different to what matters to us now. And this is coming from one of the Gandhi quotes. He summed up the teachings. Your beliefs become your thoughts. Your thoughts become your words. Your words become your actions. Your actions become your habits. Your habits become your values, and your values become your destiny. And it's similar to what we've been talking about. But I think that's where we kind of have gone wrong as a collective human species, is what we've been valuing over the past 50 years, 20 years. This is our destiny. We're a byproduct. Every choice that we've all contributed to has led us here. And there's this sense of looking at what we're valuing, what matters to us most, looking at the habits that our routines that we're reinforcing, looking at actually what choices, like all of a sudden, how we're speaking to each other, what thoughts we're having with each other, and what belief system. Is it a core false belief system, or is it a belief system of love? That, there's a sense that we start to actually have to take responsibility and accountability. And this is where I love the Buddhist teaching. They say, if you see Buddha by the road selling Buddhism, kill him. Whereas these teachings are very personal to us. We can share these teachings, but I'm not going to impose what my belief system onto you. I'm offering you guys these maps, and you take these maps and put them into practice. You're your own teacher. You have your own inner guru. So this idea of working with death is a really interesting one, because we all are going to die. My late husband died 8 years ago, and it's changed the whole of my life, because every time I walk out of London, step over my threshold, I have to do a little handing over my will and my life over to the God of my understanding, because God knows if I was going to die that day, my children will be left without their biological parents. They have a stepdad who's amazing. Or if Christian's going to die, my new husband, or if one of my girls dies. But the fear and the attachment towards holding on to that creates so much suffering. And it's that living open-handed and hearted. It's one of the, is it niyamas? My brain's all of a sudden gone on too many things that I've put in it. But it's the aparigraha, isn't it? I'm going to have to find it. But it's to actually live with more of an openness, that a butterfly lands on your hand, and you're just like, oh my God, that is so beautiful. Oh, it's mine, and I'm going to share it with everybody. And then you realize, oh no, I crushed its wings. And then you damaged it. So this thing is I do that with my husband. I'm like, you better not die on me. Because I have that experience of what death is like, and what it feels like to be alone and to grieve. I hate it. It's horrible. But we're all going to go through it. So finding practices to be able to kind of go, it was beautiful. What I had with my late husband was amazing. But I need to let him go. And I have to let my children rest in my hand. And if they have to go, I can't hold on, because it just reinforces more and more of this grasping, clasping, this sense of raga, of clinging. And I was like, oh. And so it's just a part of the kind of the wheel of suffering, the wheel of dukkha that we get to practice with. And so it's like, okay, are my choices today aligned to my belief system? Are they anchored in what matters to me most and valued? And the hard thing is that we're all going to have to lose someone. And it's going to be really, really hard. And it's really, really painful. But the byproduct of losing someone and being in that pain is because you have capacity to love so deeply. It's the flip side of the same coin. And so your capacity to love mirrors that shadow side of grief and loss. So, but it's hard because we're human. But the Buddha nature to the Adhikara, the yogi, the seeker, it's that 10,000 arrows of sorrow and 10,000 arrows of joy. And the yogi is able to hold both with equanimity, with balance, and with a sense of detachment with love, knowing that this is a part of the prarabdha karma. This is a part of active karma that we have to deal with. So it's ways of learning how to practice rain, recognize how, like right now, I feel like I want to hold on. I don't want to die. Or I've been given a prognosis, or I have cancer, and I just know that inevitably I'm gonna die. And so it's like, okay, I recognize it. Allow some breathing room for this fear. Abhiniveshita, breathe. Okay. Investigate. Okay, where is it? How is it manifesting in me? Is it a grumpy? What emotions are coming up? What is it saying to me? How am I talking to myself? Okay, how can I nurture non-judgmental awareness? How can I take care of myself just for today? Don't worry about tomorrow, just for today. Keep it in the day. And so this sense of kind of looking at the unmanageable feelings, thoughts, behaviors, and looking what you can be powerful over and what you're powerless over, and starting to have that discernment. But it's a lot of words for something that I can say, but you got to experience. I can offer you a map, but you'd need to explore the terrain. So hopefully with a PDF that I'll share, that you can go through this stuff and go a little bit deeper into practice. Thanks, Ellie, for sharing.
Just hold that.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you know, that's why she's on doing a lecture today. That last bit is why Zephyr's in my life.
Aww.
And why I want her to talk to you and share. And share in openness.
A lot more wisdom amongst
literally
people,
that was gold.
People.
I'm seeing eyes going. Man, that was amazing. Zephyr, gosh. There's not ways I think I can love you more, and then you say something and I do.
Well, if you guys are going through grief and loss right now, I can recommend 2 books. And I know myself, when I was going through grief and loss, I couldn't read, so I could listen. So there's audible variations of this too. But Megan Devine's It's Okay That You're Not Okay, that book is incredible. And then recently, one of my girlfriends, she's a fellow yogi and a student of mine, has written a book called The Languages of Loss. Her name's Sasha Bates. Both are psychotherapists, both experience loss, and both are just expressing stories and practical tools and tips to be able to manage grief and loss. So I would recommend those books. Megan Devine.
I'll send that out, Zephyr, on those in the week. I think someone asked if they could have the PDFs as well, so I'll send that out on Tuesday. But yeah, can you say it again, because Kate wants to know right now?
Yeah, It's Okay That You're Not Okay by Megan Devine. It's a NAF title, but it's so appropriate. And then Languages of Loss by Sasha Bates. You can get them both on Audible UK. And actually, I just finished yesterday Languages of Loss by Sasha Bates. And Tamsin Gray narrates it. She does a brilliant job. It's really good. And Megan Devine narrates her Audible book, and you can really hear her, very personal experience, her words being expressed. So recommend both of those. And do recommend those to other people who might be dealing with grief or loss, either supporting people who are grieving or themselves. Yeah.
Cool. That was amazing. I mean, beautiful. Anyone else have any questions? I mean, I think we can leave it there pretty much.
Yeah. Well, thank
Amazing.
you guys so much for your attention and presence and openness and being willing to kind of be flexible in more ways than one. Us yogis, of being flexible not only in your body but with your teachers, and you're very lucky that you have Scott in your life to be able to give you guys this platform to be able to kind of process. This is very good to undigest, or to digest this kind of stuff that we're going through, and to kind of release some of the charge that it brings up. So well done, Scott, for offering your community.
It's an honor, and it's just a beautiful honor to know, and that you can come on and share in the way that you do and bring ties about the things about what the information. It's not kind of, it's just you sharing a process that's you've gone through for the last 21 years, and then about take it with you. It's about all of us taking this information and going, let's see what we can do with it, rather than it's like not this top down thing. It's just something really that you can weave, and you say, look and try and feel. And that's almost like what this whole thing with Stillpoint Online is about. Just like, how can we just weave something through so everyone can feel part of, get what they need from it, and can give back if they want to as well. It's just a really privilege to be able to just create this environment for you to be able to, and all of us to be able to share and connect. Just it's stunning. So yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Well, what I'm going to do before everyone can say goodbye, I'm going to open the line, so make it sure it's a little bit kind of quiet behind you, and then we can all say goodbye to each other as we sign off. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're all unmuted.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Amazing.
That was amazing. Really good.
Guys. All right, have a good, and I'll see some of you on Monday. All right.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
See you later.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you. Aww.
Oh, amazing. Let's stay on, Zephyr.
Okay.
Thank you, Ethan.
The brain gets too stressed.
Oh, there's
You
Jill.
show yourself now, big man.
Oh, congratulations with the new studio. I've been seeing your Instagram posts. It looks great.
Oh, I have to unmute you right there. You're muted right there. You're unmuted. Is that you? Are you there?
No,
Oh, wait
he's muted again. Maybe his sound's not on.
We still can't still hear you. Oh, Caroline, brilliant. I'm really pleased you enjoyed it. It's amazing. It's more a retreat than a lockdown. That's how we want to hear it. Have a beautiful day, Caroline. See you.
Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I had my lapel mic attached. So.
Oh, okay.
Doug said hi.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. We've had
You guys had to cancel that workshop, didn't you?
Well, we've moved to November. So.
Well, hopefully he'll, things will open up again, and you guys can have him back, and he can nurture your guys'
It's only temporary.
community.
Only temporary. How are you getting on in Morocco?
Good. There's some ups and downs, but